And with that, a little different countdown, a little different intro than we usually have. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talking Baseball Australia Live. Baseball's best mate, Dan Watt and Paul Morgan with you. Now, we're in the same town,
yes,
but not in the same spot. So, first off, good mid-morning to you, for starters.
Good morning. I think we're also in the same shire, whatever you want to call it. You're there in West Perth. I'm in Subiaco, which you're familiar with Perth.
It's an extension,
Dan's there on Hay Street in West Perth. I'm virtually just off Hay Street in Subiaco. So we're about a kilometre apart, but which, is a lot different to our normal 10,000 kilometres apart. But we'll make it work. And it's look, here we are, DV, the final turn for the year, and what an interesting battle we have coming up against. The fourth time these two teams will have appeared in a championship series, which is interesting. Of course, back in 2010, and when the inaugural one, then they played over there in Norwood. Then, of course, last season, and they'll be back again this year. So, so it'll be interesting, and we'll see what happens this time. So far, 2-1 Heat have it in championships.
Yeah. The first thing, and I'll just start with the knee jerks first. The first thing I thought of, there was a graphic, and I believe it was from the ABL, I think, maybe on X, I think, and it had all the year-by-years since the return of the current format, which for you folks that are maybe not familiar with the entire history of the Claxton Shield, there was a time, 90s, where there was a different competition. There was a time early 2000s until 2010 where there was basically a state competition, kind of, if you're familiar with rugby, a state of origin type competition. And then it's called this ABL current format. And so that's been going on since 2010. And the amazing part is that in this round, Perth has got their logo stretched there 9 different times.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like if you've watched NFL, the Buffalo Bills were 3 times in a row in the Super Bowl and lost all 3. It's not like that. Now they're approaching that situation, but they've had a huge history. They had the back-to-backs. They had a couple more back-to-backs. They've had some heartbreak as well, but they have a long, long history. So my first knee-jerk just coming into the show is the history of the Heat in this round. Regardless of what happens, I think that you look up and you see that logo 9 times, more than anybody else, including Brisbane, who won it 4 in a row. It's pretty impressive.
100%. I think that's testament to the franchise, I think, with what they've been able to achieve. And Adelaide have been there a bunch of times as well. And these two teams are probably, like Adelaide hasn't had the success that potentially they would have, but now are they on the door of a dynasty of their own, and back to back will do that, and they're not going to get any they're not going to drop off anytime soon. But you're spot on, DV. I think you've got 2 teams that have been in it for such a long period of time, and both been successful, and it's it's not. I mean, we're only talking 14 years that that this league's been back in business, essentially. Well, 14 years. And, for these 2 teams to be 4 times lining up in the championship series, that's good conversions. And, of course, Adelaide have had other championship series, and as of the Heat. But, I think but this one is, I think when you get to this point of the season and you get to this championship game, I mean, we've got stats for everything under the sun. And look, none of Adelaide's stats from last week really married, outside of probably the strength of their pen. None of their offensive stats married their regular season stats. But so look, I think now you just kind of let it loose and just kind of let this thing fly and see how it shakes out. We know it'll be Tyler Beardsley for the Heat. We assume that it'll be Lachlan Wells for the Adelaides. We were told that he was on the flight, so we assume he's going to be there and starting, which is a huge battle between, arguably the 2 best starters in the league as well. And look, this Friday night game is more critical for the Heat than Adelaide. I think if Adelaide drop it, they've still got the historical confidence of knowing they can go and win 2 in Adelaide. But, it's a huge game, particularly for Perth. We were out there last night talking to the front office. Ticket sales are pretty strong, but there are still ones available. So if you're in Perth, absolutely drop by perthheat.com.au to get your tickets, or walk up to Empire Ballpark, 7 o'clock first pitch. But, Yeah, I'm excited for this one, DV. I think it's a repeat of what's happened, but and it's two teams with two vastly different season stories, and at the same time, I think two teams that I think there's virtually no pressure on the Heat because I don't think realistically many people think that they can win. And I think with that, it comes an enormous opportunity when you can go out and just play the game and have fun.
Yeah.
While Adelaide, they're on the back page of the Adelaide Advertiser today. There's an enormous amount of pressure on Adelaide. And I think, and that wasn't there last year. Last year was about breaking the drought. Now it's about staying champion. So you got two teams, one with absolutely nothing to lose and one with a lot to lose.
And Kieran, talking baseball, Australia baseball's best mate. Before we jump in, which by the way, just keep remembering baseball's best mate. Okay, you guys you're watching or listening to us. Put that in your head. Put the branding of baseball's best mate in your head because Paul and I have got something coming on that shortly. Before we dive, I as a broadcaster, front office member, whatever, I've been on both sides. I've been in a situation where a team is the runaway favorite. I would go back to 2021 with the Kansas City Monarchs, had the best record in the league, won their last, 9 games on the way to a championship, literally swept the playoffs and won their last 5 regular season games, including a 4-game sweep on the road over the holiday. No problem. Nothing to see here. I've also been the underdog where a team goes on the road and wins on house money at home and goes on the road, loses game 2, but is underdog the entire series against a really good Sioux City team who I'm with now, and watch the team that was with the league's best record not go forward. I've been there. I've seen both sides of a 3-game series, and that's where I think that you've made a really good point. And I think I got the feeling last night in talking to Andy Kyle and what you just said. The Heat they're not dumb. They know the history. They know that Andy's looking for a title. Some of these young guys, the Alex Halls of the world, the Bowies of the world, who saw Claxton Shield glory as youngsters, watching their heroes getting back-to-backs, all that. We all know the storylines here, but I got a feeling last night, just like you said, that it didn't matter that the Heat are in the spot. It didn't seem to be, it's water off the duck's back, so to speak. Adelaide seemed, and I not talked to them, they flew in last night. We will see them obviously this afternoon. But I got a feeling just reading the articles, reading what, by the way, in great coverage in Adelaide. By the way, tip of the cap. Yeah. Whoever, and that's Eric and Phil and that company doing great work. But I got the attitude, just reading between the lines, that it's a business mission for them, and business can go good or bad. For the Heat, it's sort of like, hey, we're here. You got to get here to win it, and they seem to be really kind of me worried. I don't know which way. Because I've seen both sides go. Very good for one side and very bad for the other. I can even take you back to last year in the American Association, who placed 3-game series in the first round. Sioux City went on the road, won one game. I'm going to say won their only game on the road, then beat Fargo in 2, no problem at home. Won at home against Kansas City, went to Kansas City, lost a tough one, a tough pitcher's duel, and then lost a heartbreaker in game 3. And these things can go either way. And that's what I love about I don't like 3-game series, but I like the fact that the outcomes, while they are predictable, they never are that predictable.
Absolutely. And like I had a conversation, we talked about Eric Bollner before, I was on the phone with Eric earlier this week, and, he said, we was talking about it, back and forth about what's going on. And, and he said, he goes, the Heat from 2-6 to 2 wins away from winning it all. I mean, after 2 rounds, nobody would have thought we'd be sitting here with the Heat in the championship series, and here they are.
You and I honestly were talking then and going, "Gosh, can they squeeze in that 4th spot?" As selfish me, I thought, "Well, am I going to see the West again this year?" That was, it's a very special place to be. Well, I see this country again this year, and there were some doubts there. I'm totally with you, and but the body of work the whole year, Adelaide's been consistent since that round, though. Perth's been great, and I'm right there with you. Let me throw one more thing at you before we dive into the whole X's and O's of it, borrowing a gridiron term, maybe lineups of it all. I want to blow this off because you and I didn't talk this yesterday, but more I thought about it last night. that I'm not a huge fan of the 6-team league. By the way, we're on Talking Baseball Australia Live. Baseball's best made. I like more teams, right? I want to see 8, 10. I want to see 8, 10, 12 teams in this competition. That's just me. The more competition, the more opportunity. That's just me. But one thing I will say about the 6-team competition, you've got some really good rivalries. And this is a rivalry that maybe 6 years ago, it was sort of like Perth just sort of had that one series of Adelaide, and that was it. There was not, but this has become a very good rival. These two teams have squared off now back to back. Your thoughts on because they're all good, but this one's butting into being suddenly it wasn't a rivalry, and now it seems like it's a big rivalry.
It's funny, but I still don't think I still don't see these two teams as rivals because I still think they're sort of, there's maybe a bit more brotherly love or something between these two teams or something along those lines. But yeah, you're right. I mean, and I mentioned that in the broadcast last week when we had Brisbane. I mean, because Perth were in a different conference to Brisbane, we hadn't seen Brisbane that often. And, all of a sudden we saw them, played them twice, saw them again in the postseason, became familiar with the players. So from that side, it was great. But, I actually thought of that myself this morning. I thought this should be a rivalry, but I'm not sure it actually feels like a rivalry between these two teams because it hasn't. There's never really been anything explosive or anything in my memory. I mean,
there's been no bench clearing situation like last weekend, right?
No, and even like last year, I mean, I think there was that real sentiment from people in the West anyway. There's a real sentiment of like, well, if great for Adelaide. They've broken the drought. Great for them. And Simon Isons, who'll be in the booth with me tonight. Yeah, healthy respect. I think that's
there we go. I see it right now.
Yeah, but Adelaide, Melbourne, there's obviously a very rival. I mean, there was that rivalry early on. Perth, Canberra had a real good rivalry going on for a little while there. That got a bit, and I think the Heat over the last few years, there just hasn't seemingly been those kind of. Hey, who knows, Dan? Now maybe could be benches cleared after benches cleared.
Well, but you bring up a good point because those early Canberra, we're taking folks in the ABL back. We're going back to 2012-13. The Heat were going for a three-peat, which at the time was thought of as unheard of because since then we've seen Brisbane win 4. But 3 was a big deal, and Canberra kind of came out of nowhere. I won't say came out of nowhere. They had a really good year. Really good year. Yeah. Wound up going to the Asia Series the next year and doing a great job there too, obviously winning that. But what Canberra kind of was like the little brother. They were like the lither brother who, Perth just kind of tapped him on the head a couple times and, it's good to see you. But Canberra really had that chip on their shoulder thing. Yeah. And that rivalry kind of carried over, but then it sort of fizzled away. I'm with you. This Adelaide thing, there's a lot of close ties, a lot of good mates, you and I were kind of laughing last night, and this is, I'm not going to get in the deep weeds here, but you and I were with some of the players who were giving us information that only players would share. And that's how close these guys are. And I think a lot of it comes from the quality of player playing for Team Australia. That goes a long way. You got guys that are teammates internationally playing against each other. It's a different dynamic, but it still creates a family you're playing. And when you play your family or your best friend, you want to do well.
You absolutely, and then they need to do well because, Dan, I'm gonna advance the show now to what I want to kind of get your take on, which is so Lachlan Wells, we assume, is the starting pitcher for the Adelaide Giants tonight, and what a great, first off, huge congratulations to Lachlan Wells, the Helms Award winner. He's a Helms Award winner. He's the pitching champion. He's done no wrong this year. When you look at what he's done against Perth as well, there are only 4 hits have been generated from 34 at-bats, 4 hits out of 34 at-bats. Nobody's got a ribby against him. Tim Kennelly's got 2 hits. Alex Hall's got a hit, and Ryan Spikes has got a hit. I mean, that gives Adelaide such a strong confidence. But you look at that stat line. I mean, he has mowed guys out, 13 strikeouts. I mean, it's there's nothing, and this is when I was looking through all the stats. I mean, literally the only stat you can pull that gives you, if you're a Perth Heat fan, that like last week they were all full with runners in scoring position, but you look at that resume now, and if you're Andy Cole right now, and you're firing up the troops in the clubhouse beforehand, knowing that the stats against the guy you're going against tonight do not bode well for you at all. I mean, what are your thoughts off the bat? I mean, are you going, we need to do something different?
In postseason baseball, and I'll take the American Association, Major League Baseball, whatever, your stars have to be a star. And a lot of times, good pitching beats good hitting, but your star's got to be a star. And it is a battle of stars. The one thing I will say is it's always that unsung situation, whether it be, we all knew Altuve was a pretty good ball player a couple of years ago, but what he did in the postseason has made him a legend, and now he's a vilified character throughout Major League Baseball. Use him as an example. As I knew who the guy was, but he had a phenomenal run when the Astros won the World Series, things like that. I mean, you got situations like that, but your stars going to be stars. You watched the Rangers last year; their stars were stars. I mean, they're stars, but there's always someone there lurking in the weeds, or the youngster, or whoever that's going to contribute as well. So from just an overall standpoint, someone's got to step up. Your star's got to be the star, but someone there for Adelaide or for Perth will be, not that they're not a good player, but it'll be something. And I'm just throwing a name out there. It could be, maybe it's a reliever who comes in that gets out of a crucial situation to preserve a 1-0 lead, right? And maybe it's something like that. It could be. I'll also tell you too, because I've seen this so many times. Your aces are going in game one. It's always a battle of aces, right? Unless that ace happened to pitch in an elimination game. That's been a couple of times that happened. But by and large, my time in Kansas City and Sioux City, where I think I've called, 20 some odd, no more than that, almost 30 playoff games, you got to take pitches. You got to work the count. You got to see pitches. And even though, let's say, Lachlan Wells or Tyler Beardsley is mowing guys down the first 3 innings, you watch that on deck. You watch those guys in the dugout. They're watching. They want to see pitches. If you can work a count, 3-2, 2-2, what you don't want to do is go 1-2-3 swings or first pitch swinging, unless you've been aggressive all year. And I've seen it work both ways. What you don't want to do, if you're a first pitch hitter and you see a fastball and you like it, well, go and hit it, right? But I think the more pitches you see and the deeper in counts they get early, that's where the adjustments come in, inning 4, 5, 6. And you see now his fastball, slider, his changeup. If you're only seeing 1 pitch or 2 pitches, and suddenly he brings up a changeup that you hadn't seen in the first 3 innings, that's a problem. So I would just tell you from a strategic standpoint, there's 2 ways to go about it. And Simon would know this too, as his time as a pitcher. You want to be a first pitch strike guy, right? Simon would tell you that. First pitch strike, get ahead in the count, get ahead in the count. But if your first pitch strike is a good pitch, a good hitter's pitch, you got to be aggressive too, right? I'm all for that. But if it's not a first pitch strike, if he falls behind 1-0, man, I want him to go 2-0. Maybe it goes 1-1 in the count. I still want to go a chance to go 2-1 or 1-2. But what I don't want to do is pop myself out on a 1-0. If I'm behind the count 1-0, if he's behind the count 1-0, I want to see one more pitch. And that's what I would talk to strategy-wise, throwing first pitch strikes. But again, battle of aces, it's one of those deals where, July, in January, in round 7, you blink and you lose a game and you still survive. Here you blink and you make that crucial, you score that 1 run, 2 runs.
Yeah.
It's church. It's lights out. So it's an interesting matchup. And he is, what I like about him too, and I did a little reading on him, I'd forgotten he had a lot of, he was in prospect mode. Yeah. And you and I were talking this last night, I think he's a guy, this happens a lot. You step back from the game a moment, you kind of go, get everything right. He stepped back from the game, it appears, and sort of, I don't know if the word zen's right, but whatever it is, has sort of refocused his efforts, because I got to tell you, that guy looks like he can pitch right now, AAA, big league bullpen right now. That's how good his stuff's been. And I know the competition is not the same, but he looks that good. That's a long answer there, but that's what we do on Talking Baseball Australia Live. We do long answers.
We absolutely, and we got a question from Alex as well, which we may as well go from the number 2 started, which is
that's a really good. Go ahead and take that, because that's a really big storyline.
A blight in the league, no clarity. Adelaide posting rosters, not taking it down. League is not doing it. Ins and outs of the week. Look, I knew that Jack O'Loughlin wasn't pitching this week last Saturday. I knew that was it. So I don't, and to be honest, I don't know. I probably haven't seen the communication or that lack thereof. So I don't know what what did or didn't get sort of said, but I was told like last week that he was going back. His story essentially, he's been with the team, and I've actually got no issue with it personally. Reason being, he was with the team. Curtis Mead and Jack O'Loughlin trained with that team all year. They've been working out that team. O'Loughlin signed with the Athletics back November, I think, along those lines. So part of his signing with the O's as well, with the A's, should I say, as well, was an invitation to spring training, which means he'll be part of MLB's preseason squad, and an opportunity to break camp out of.
Yeah, let me interject real quick to explain what he's talking about, because some of you folks, if you're North America, you know this, but there's basically 3 spring trainings. You've got early spring training, which is pitchers and catchers, and guys who are invited. And you got big league camp where the big league veterans make their appearance, and you got minor league phase. The minor league phase is weeks later. He was invited to the early phase of spring training. So continue there. He was invited to he's invited to be the pitchers and catchers. That's a big deal.
And so obviously he's in the States now, and yes, maybe he could have been pitching this week, but I mean, we've got to remember, like we want to see the best Australians playing the game in the ABL, and if sometimes exemptions have to go other ways, I'm happy to take Jack O'Loughlin every day of the week, and if he's only pitching 2 games a year or whatever, it's like if Curtis Mead played this weekend. Like, yes, it would be obviously from a heat standpoint, you'd kind of go, well, where's this guy been all year? But from the greater game, like, great, but
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just to sort of, I think could the communications of ins and outs and whatnot be better? Like, sure, I think there's no doubt that could be better.
The league probably, and this is something that maybe they can address down the road. And this is by no means a critical bashing or even a major issue, but I think maybe explaining to the fans, and we'd be happy to do a show maybe next November to kind of explain how things work, because I can take you for everything that's happened. I can take you a story. Do you remember why Warwick Supple now is a starter? But there was a time he was a closer in this league. And why was that? Because he was pitching for the Tigers, who had him on a pitch count. So he wanted to pitch for his hometown team in Perth, but he couldn't start because he started. He burned those innings up. I think he had like 25 innings. He burned those innings up in, a month, and then he would be watching for the bench. But as a closer, he'd work an inning here, inning there. He was able to do that because these organizations have invested money. He was on a big league contract. They had money invested in this guy on the 40-man roster, and they say you pitch 25 innings, you pitch 25 innings. Remember, yes, it is our competition in Australia, but O'Loughlin's ultimate goal is to be in the big leagues. If that means not pitch but X amount of innings and not pitch in the grand final, this is not the big leagues. And we got to remember that. I know it's hard because we want our teams to win, but the ultimate goal of all these guys that are playing and chasing their major league dreams is the major leagues. You've got factors thrown in there. The Heat have got a situation where they'd have a number 2 starter. I'd be calling this thing over, but the kid's gone back to pitch in Japan. Because he's got an innings cap, and he's got a chance to be the opening, one of the top 3 starters of that team. So there's a lot of dynamics to go into it. But I would agree, the communication, Alex, probably should be better, and I think that's what Paul and I say.
I think to be fair though, and to be fair, there you go. So there's Eric chiming in as well. So Ross is, but also, I think the other thing is, like, most of the guys at a big league level who break stories are beat writers, and that's not quite there. But I think regardless, my take on it is if someone's playing 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, I want the best Australians playing here. Because Jack O'Loughlin, we know that the Athletics are. We know that probably tonight there's going to be more fans in the seats than probably at an athletics game in mid-July. But he's got a – and I think, like, how awesome, again, for baseball here. If in July, if O'Loughlin can be pitching for the Athletics, and we're sitting there going, how good was it that we got to see him pitch for the Giants against Melbourne to put him in the champs.
Let's fast forward 4 years. Let's say he's in Vegas with the Athletics, and they've got money coming in left and right with their new TV deal and their stadium deal, and he's winning the AL West and working out of the bullpen as a close, whatever, or set guy. That's a pretty big deal. There's a story right there. So you never know what happens. By the way, Eric's right on. I will tell you this, and I want to tell Eric, and Eric, just so Eric's watching, there was a time the rosters, and I'm going back 2012, 13, it was, the rosters are a little sort of, you'd get a spreadsheet. We would get them because we were broadcasting, but by and large, you didn't sometimes know who was on the roster, but the league has posted those rosters every week. I think the thing is, and I think what I would say is that, first off, they did a great job. I've been able to, there's times of this show where going back a few years ago, I have to look and I would say, well, so-and-so was on the roster last week, and I'd look up and they weren't they didn't make the trip over. That has happened before. That doesn't happen now. The rosters are all like that. What I think Eric's saying, I think he's right, is that, maybe they got to, and this is where we as a show have got to do a good job too, is saying, hey, this is the roster changes. And Paul's done a great job of that. Paul's done a really good job on the show of letting folks know who's in, who's out. As a matter of fact, I think Eric does that too on the ABL side, who's in, who's out. So anyway, I just throw it out there. If someone rolls Ohtani or Kershaw out, I wouldn't be, okay, well, all right. Yeah, Nolan Ryan's birthday was yesterday. It's 70-some-odd years old, and they roll him out. I'll be fine too.
Well, actually, I was having a joke with Baseball to Base CEO Lachlan Dale, like looking at his 2010 stats. If they rolled him out, he was hitting from 6 games. I think he's hitting 420 or something along those lines. But I'll flip the coin. I'll flip the coin.
Remember you said the show here, Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best mate for you folks. The podcast, we're glad you're here. You folks in video, we're glad you're here. Continue, my friend.
I will then flip the script across to the man on the bump tonight for the Heat out of California. Of course, Tyler Beardsley. Kane County was his last stop, Sioux City. Of course, your neck of the woods as well back in 2022 is with those Sioux City Explorers. Let's go X's and,
Yep, let's go X's.
That's the caps we're wearing now. But the Beardsley this year as well, when we talked about Wells, he's had his success as well. 38 at-bats, the 9 hits. Gave up a home run to Nava, which is he's a good hitter. But again, like a couple of hits from McArdle, a couple of hits from Spence, a couple of hits from Ward. So there's that dangerous top lineup of Adelaide kind of getting busy in a way. But he's a guy again. When you look through his resume, he's again it's a couple of years in Sioux City. Kane County, of course, was with the Giants, with the Aces as well. Now Perth, he's on the model on sort of, I suppose, maybe the other bucket when we look at guys who can just go till their arm falls off, and they've been around the traps 100 times. And your thoughts on Tyler Beardsley and how perhaps like leaning into that long time experience in the association can lend itself tonight.
I love the guy. I don't know him that well. We've chatted a few times. We miss each other in Sioux City, but I do know people who have worked with him. A guy I respect a lot, George Samus, former little time with the Twins organization, manager, was the St. Paul Saints, now King County. George is a pitcher's manager, knows his stuff. I've known George 30 years, known him since he was in Double-A. Rode buses together back then. Steve Montgomery, former Perth Heater, who pitched in 97 and beat Brisbane in Game 2, and former Orioles farmer, and he's our manager in Sioux City. Bobby Post, the pitching coach in Sioux City. Those are all 3 guys I have immense respect for and have very deep relations with. When they tell me a guy can pitch, I take that fact. It's like a lot like Simon. When Simon tells me something, I take it as fact, right? The guy knows what he's talking about. And those are people I know what they're talking about. So I've seen Beardsley pitch with my own eyes, and I think I like what I see. What I like is I know the kind of guys who worked with him and got his career, left the Twins organization, I believe in 17, I think it was, and really battled the independent leagues. This is a guy who threw 111 innings last year for King County. He threw, 50 innings this year, something like that. This is a guy that goes out. He doesn't scuffle. He doesn't kick the dirt. He doesn't look at his shoe tops. He goes about his business and pitches like this. It's a rhythm. and you watch anybody that's worked with those three gentlemen I just mentioned, if you watch anyone that's been successful like those three gentlemen have been, the rhythm's like this. It's a very steady rhythm. He's not a rain delay pitcher. He's not thinking, oh my gosh, it's 3-2. What do I do now? He goes about his business, and I think he's got a good pace. Watch his pace. Even with that, now granted, he doesn't have a pitch clock right here, but he has a real good pace. So I think he's sort of obviously, Wells is the storyline because he's that great. He's a Helms winner, but Pearsall's a guy that he pitched 111 innings in Kent County, but he made 19 starts last year in the American Association. That ain't no joke.
Yeah.
I mean, that averages out. He's over 5 innings, or just almost 6 innings a start, something like that. I mean, that ain't no joke. And I think he fits his ballpark well. He's pitched well here, and he also is one of those rare imports. There's a few of them out there who've been here multiple times and understand the league and how to get guys out in this league. It's a little different in this league sometimes. You have a different type of players sometimes, and you don't always have to think like you're facing Babe Ruth. There are times you can dial it back a notch, and there are times you can turn it up. And I think that bodes well in this league for guys that have been around a while. So I love this is a matchup right here that if you just want to watch a good game, you want to watch two guys know what the heck they're doing, and two managers know what the heck they're doing, and two lineups know what the heck they're doing. Tonight's game should be one that you should make appointment streaming for, or make your point to be at the ballpark.
Absolutely, should no doubt, and get to the ball. Many people can get there as possible. Rock that place, which would be huge. But Beardsley got the start, of course. This game last year went 5 2/3 innings, 8 hits, 3 earned runs, struck out 4. So, look, we remember that was a game that the Heat went on to win 9-5 with that sort of the big 4 spot in the 4th was kind of where the damage was. But from a scoring point of view, on Beardsley, it was there was. The guys that are going to, again, the Liam Spencers, the Jordan McArdles, they're the guys that kind of get busy for Adelaide. So Kirion was great last year as well in that game as well. So there's, I think the fact, like what I like about this for both teams, not just I like that both teams is the two lineups are reasonably similar. Obviously, Adelaide's very, very similar. When you look at the lineup that they sent this time last year, they got Nick Ward, Anthony Kirion, Rickson Wingrove, Quincy Lattimore, Jordan McArdle, Michael Martinez, Jared Carr, Liam Spence, Ryan January, who they spent. So there's not a lot of names different this year. Of course, you've got Wells and a few guys that have come in. So, again, and then, DV, you kind of look at the two offenses, and Adelaide's offense has been so good all year. But, you kind of hang your hat on, if we just then maybe take a look at if we can kind of take a look at postseason, then obviously it's only a 1-game series and both these teams won. But, right. That's the only time that you can sort of start, having not some hope, but you can sort of start looking at that from a Heat perspective and kind of go, okay, well, maybe one of the big stats, runners in scoring position in postseason. So last week, I mean, the Heat with 381 and with runners in scoring position, the Adelaide Giants are 067. So, there's small little nuggets there that I'm sure that you can build up to take hype. But, the pitching this is a battle that the Heat need to, if it gets to a battle of the bullpen, I think, the Heat are probably in trouble. Adelaide's bullpen has been phenomenal. But give me your sort of.
Can I give you guys a stat that I find very interesting about this series, and I don't know if it's going to hold up. By the way, Simon makes a good point. You can't hold a player back from play pro ball. It may hurt the ABL, but exactly, it's the same thing, Simon. Before I get to what I was going to tell you, when Sioux City loses an ace or the great player that signs the big league club, it hurts the club initially. But over the long haul, that's going to build the program because guys will want to come there and play and know they're going to get a chance to chase their major league dreams. So subtraction is bad, but it also brings more addition down the road. All right, trivia question here, and I'll answer it for you guys. The Adelaide Giants, are they better hitting at home or on the road? Now, you know the answer to this question. I'm going to give you guys about a second here. But if I told you Adelaide hit 300 away from from home, would you look at me and go, "You're crazy"? Hello, there's my wife. Good to see you back at home in the States. Love you, honey. Adelaide hits 300. Now, a lot of that came from the series in Brisbane where they hit, 30 home runs, whatever. But they still are hitting 300 away and 248 at home.
Yep.
That's still a pretty big split. I throw that out there just because, now granted, they're not playing in Brisbane. They're playing in Perth, which is a different type ballpark. But I find that delicious that, but at the same time, their ERA on the road, 3.81. Their ERA, and you know this because you already were talking about this earlier, their ERA here, Talking Baseball Australia, is I've got my browser kind of going crazy. Their ERA at home is a 2.20. So they've been much. It's funny. Usually you're better at home at offense and pitching, but they are flipped. They're better offensively on the road and a little rougher at home pitching wise. It's a little bit some wild stats here too. Eric says 11-0 on travel days. Adelaide is the lowest batting average in the league when trailing. Two bizarre stats. Now that I did not know. Wow, interesting. That's the last 2 years. Okay. Wow, interesting stuff. I don't know about your question here on Talking Baseball Australia. I tried to find an edge here last night. Yeah. And the more I looked, the more I kind of got frustrated and said, and I go back to what I keep saying, Adelaide's champions until they're not. It's a simple way out for me, I know, without giving you guys numbers. But my thought is I've taught myself into being scared S-less tonight, when reality is I have nothing to worry about probably. But that's just me.
Yeah. It's 100%. It's when you look at that. But I looked at that stat. Actually, Eric brings up that stat because the only thing from a Heat point of view, the only thing you can really, potentially hold your hat on is the fact that they're the lowest in the league when they're trailing hitting wise and postseason runners in scoring position, but. They are such a bulletproof team, though, Adelaide. When you look at every pitching stat, you ain't going to find anything in pitching to kind of show that there might be a chance. There's no stat in there that's going to show you a chance against their pitching. But
we always joke about they build large casinos in Nevada because everybody has a chance. Eric even says here, since round 3, these two teams have been identical. That's you and I were talking about that yesterday on the way to the ballpark. Much like last week, it probably goes to Sunday. And really, last year's series, Perth got the upper hand at home. The guy that had a big inning, had a couple of close calls. They actually had a lead in game 3, couldn't hold on to it. I believe I have 2 and 3 backwards here, but they were not blowouts. They were big. What happened last year was what really Adelaide's done over the years, at least the last 2 years. They had that one big moment, the big home run. Was a big home run last year. There's the big play that they had last week here at the plate. There's been a big play here and there everywhere, and that's what was the difference. Was because the Heat, those games are very competitive. Yes, and you're playing a 2-1 series. That's pretty competitive because you only play 3 games.
Yep.
It's obvious. Mr. said the obvious, but I'm with you. I mean, we haven't got the prediction side yet, but just to go back what they did this year, and you and I. Can go back. And what's odd about this whole thing, they won all 4 games in Perth back in November, 10-5, 7-3, 9-1, and 10-5. Now, that sounds like you went to the woodshed and got your hide tanned. Well, you did, but that was also what was round number 2. Yeah, since round 3, the Heat have been a different team, right? And then the Heat went over there, beat them 5-1, 4-0, lost 3-2 and 1-4-1. And what I think that's more the what you're going to see this weekend. That's probably what you're going to see, 4-1, 3-2, that kind of deal.
Yeah. Well, that's again, like you go back and say, Adelaide clubbed them here, got no problems coming here, and Perth probably got no worries about going to Adelaide based on this year. I think Phil's talking about Alex was talking about earlier the rules. Phil's we're back. Yeah, back. That's going back a few bit, but yeah, Phil, you're right. And we agree with you, Phil. I think that again,
What a great job. By the way, I meant to mention too, Phil, you mentioned this earlier. I thanked you, but I didn't read it here. But Giants media coverage, Hugh Riddle, and of course Eric, who's on right now. But yeah, great stuff. But yeah, I wanted to, Simon and I had this conversation, and this is one thing TBA is always going to do. If we're going to be harsh, we're going to find a solution. I'm not going to trash somebody without a solution. And I encourage fans to do the same thing. If you think there's a better way, and I think Eric, who's the guy who's in charge, makes a great point. And I think we make a little great point too, that maybe we should push the rosters more. And but in general, the ultimate goal here is to develop players for baseball. And if sometimes things are a little not just transparent because you've got a guy going off to play in big league camp and some guys not. I mean, there's a lot going on that happens and ebbs and flows of the season. I mean, a lot of times there's been guys who signed. What was the year? Was it the rookie year of Alex Hall and Jess Williams? They got signed by the Brewers when they were playing their first year at the Heat. I think so.
Yep.
During the season.
Yep.
So things like that happen. I mean, anyway. So I digress.
Wells got signed this season as well with them.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
as a great man once said.
Yeah, exactly. And
talking baseball Australia, baseball's best mate. All right. I can't talk myself stat wise. I mean, my head hurts from looking at the internet, looking at the stats all night last night. And I'm not a huge analytics guy anyway, so I guess we'll just dive into our thoughts on prediction wise here. And I want to try it like this. We didn't even talk about this, but Adelaide wins if. Let's go that route. Adelaide wins if. I will start by saying Adelaide wins if they do what they've done all year, which is get a moment ago the key play, quality starting pitching, and the offense does, which usually gets that one extra run. Perth wins, and it's very simple. Perth wins because they do what they've done all year. I know it sounds very elementary, but that's how playoff baseball is. You don't get to this point and suddenly change your stripes, right? You don't say, okay, we hit and run all year, so now we're going to hit it out of the ballpark. You don't change what you've done. The games are still played the same. The stakes are higher. But if you double down, and he's the blackjack term, if you double down 11 with $5 out there and 500, you do a double down. It doesn't matter. You do what you do. And I'd simply tell you, the way this thing stakes out is who does what they've been doing. And if what you do, you've been doing, you suddenly don't do it, that's who loses.
Yeah, I think Adelaide. I think whoever wins tonight wins the Shield. To be perfectly honest, because I think if Adelaide win tonight, I think they go home with house money, 2 games at home, tail up. I think really hard to deny them. I think if Perth win tonight, I actually think they win the Shield if they win tonight. I think whoever wins tonight wins the Shield because I do think if Perth, I think there's lessons learnt from last year that, like probably, I'm not saying they got ahead of themselves, but that was a huge, I mean, you got to remember this time last year, there was 3,426, I think was the number. That was the highest amount of people they had at that ballpark in a very long time. And that place, you were there, I was there, that place was buzzing last year, buzzing. And I think there was a lot of excitement. And it's a 7:20 a.m. flight back to Adelaide the next day. And I think, I think there's lessons learned. I think, I know that their starting pitcher from game 2 is I think, traveling to Adelaide today.
Yep.
And then I think, and people can probably figure out who that is if they go and look at who's not there tonight. But I don't think, from memory, I'm not sure that happened last year. I think last year I think they went on the 7:20 flight. So I think small little adjustments that they kind of made to kind of maybe counter what went wrong a little bit last year in Adelaide. I think if Adelaide, I think the pressure will be on. I think if they have to win Saturday, and there'll be a massive crowd, and that place will be rocking in West Beach, and it's a different thing. I mean, it's harder. It's in some ways it's harder to defend your belt than it's harder to defend your belt than to continually continually fight for the belt. I mean, the
Well,
Heat.
the hunted and honey, right? I mean, it's a little different. So
I said at the top of the show, I still feel like the Heat can go into this series like with literally nothing to lose. I mean, I think again from 2-6 to the championship series, that's the tip of the cap to you. And Adelaide have been the best team all year, no doubt. I think and it's so awesome to see. Yeah, Phil I think posted on ABL Fans to see the back of the Adelaide Advertiser have Todd Van Stencil on it, baseball on the back of a major metro newspaper. Awesome stuff. And but you saw last week against Melbourne, there was a couple of things. There was an error in center field that was uncharacteristic, an error in throwing to first that was uncharacteristic, that scored runs for Melbourne. There was signs that things maybe, but perhaps they got all that out of their system last week. And so I'll just say whoever wins tonight wins the Shield. And I think if it's the Heat, they'll win the Shield. I think if it's Adelaide, they'll win the Shield. I think tonight's game is unbelievably critical for how this thing unravels.
Yeah, I would agree with you. You're talking baseball, Australia, baseball's best mate, rounding third, heading for home here. Dan Vaughn and Paul Morgan with you. The all starts tonight here. I will give you my prediction here, and I will say with you, I agree that tonight's huge. Although last year I thought the very same thing, except we got the real question is on my mind is Paul pregame meal. What is your pregame meal tonight? That's a good question.
I actually don't generally like to eat before a game. I don't love to eat before a game just because I don't know. Maybe the hunger makes you kind of more focused or something. I don't know, but I've never particularly. I usually like to have a bit of a late lunch. So I like to have maybe a 2:00 sort of foot-long sub from Subway or something like that. I just feel like ties you over till later.
We've done that before. We've done it many times.
I don't love it. Yeah, I don't love it.
Well, I'm with you because it's hard as a broadcaster for me. I don't like to eat an hour before. I mean, it's got to be 2 hours before. I'm with you on the road, especially. I have a routine every city we go to. There's a place, a restaurant I go to in Fargo every game. We play there, and it's usually right at 1:30 or 2. I have a big late lunch. I don't like to have distractions, and vocally for me, the less sugar, and if there's sugar in the food, that tends to affect my quality of work or my energy too. I mean, I want to be, ready to go. When you're a one-man band, I'm the same way. I do have routines though. There's a couple of routines I have. For example, we used to go to St. Paul. St. Paul has this Killebrew root beer, really good root beer named after Harmon Killebrew, the Hall of Fame twin. And I'd get me 2 of those Killebrew root beers, put them on ice, and that was what I drank during the game, which is really not good for you, but there was a tradition I would do that. I go to certain places for whatever reason, they make a really good float in Fargo, and I grab a float. So every place is different, and you go to, and there's a really great iced coffee in Kent County. Those are all routines I have, but in general, I'm with you. There's no big pregame spread. They'll tell you, hey, you go to Chicago, they have this huge spread, and I never touch it. I go there and get 2 bottles of water, and I'm done. So anyway.
And also, you've got to remember, you've got to get your liquids up early in the day because.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the good stuff, though, Eric. But back to the whole prediction thing. And last year, I thought the same thing. Winter game 1, but what I didn't account for was just how much depth, pitching-wise, Adelaide had behind when they went 2-3. And they got really good hometown performances. That was impressive. Let's go back to last week. I mean, really for Brisbane, too. Brisbane and Melbourne both, either one of those teams could have won. That series was for the taking here or the taking there. I mean, those 2 teams could have easily pulled out the series. And I bet the Aces won game 1, which they hadn't been doing. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not as big of an uphill battle. I'm with you. The winner game 1 tonight really is an upper hand. The one thing I will say is I think the Heat got to get 1 and 2. It gets to Sunday, I get a little dicey, and that's where I worry Sunday because you're suddenly having to throw the kitchen sink. It's Johnny Allstaff, everybody on deck, which is all hands on deck anyway. But you're looking at throwing probably 3-4 pitchers a bullpen day to get you a championship. That's a lot to ask. So if you get tonight, you can get tomorrow, and it's all good. I still think it goes 3. That being said, I taught myself after looking at the numbers, the way that the Heat win this thing is they win it tonight and tomorrow. That's the way they win it. Adelaide wins if they just do, they get to Sunday. That's the way I think it plays out. You.
I think that every stat you could read on pitching would determine that Adelaide win this, whether they're ahead in the count, whether they're ahead in the game, like they're lights out in every asset. Tonight worries me from for both teams in a way. Like, obviously probably I need to see. I'd like to see the Heat and just make a couple adjustments early. Like I'm all for. I mean, I love a bit of small ball anyway, but I think maybe I don't know, drop a couple down early on. Like just change. If they let Wells dictate the game, I think the game's over. I think, and then I think if they lose tonight, they're in real strife. But
Well, and you and I have talked about this, putting the ball in play. And I go back to the days when I told you the Mark Hamburger story, where one year he was in it was the top pitcher of the association. He played little Gary, and Gary just kept bunting him to death, which is what the Rail Cats did those years. And they bunted Hamburger into frustration, and he had like a 9-game winning streak and lost like 5-1 because the wheels came off. And I'm with you. Don't suddenly change what you've been doing. But this club, the Heat club, is not really, even though they had the home run hitting contest as a joke, as a team yesterday, kind of a little competition for fun. This team is not really one of those long launch teams. This team actually is a lot more line drive, station to station, hit and run. And I'm with you. If you can lay a bunt down and get a runner in scoring position, boom, here comes a TK double or a Bowser double. That's going to be the difference. And I think you put the pressure on and again, you're going to see more pitches. If you get a guy on base, you're going to see more pitches. You're going to slow the game down as well. You can pick up tendencies. If you get a stolen base of second, you're going to see more pitches, more tendencies. So I'm with you on that.
And Eric's spot on. Whoever allows less runs is going to win, and that's something that we've talked about.
Hey, Eric, I got to put that on the screen because there's a great man that once said the very same thing on local radio here, and basically said the very same thing, and it's become a classic for Paul and I. My wife and I still crack up whenever we hear something like that. But yes, that's great stuff there, Eric. And whoever scores the most runs wins.
My prediction. My prediction, DV, I don't. This is a stat that is no one's. The stat of I've got a feeling, and I've just got a feeling the Heat are going to win. Like if they, yes, if they lose, they're going to go 4 championship series where they haven't won. I don't know. We looked at the group yesterday. Adelaide the same. They're having fun. They look at tight knit group. There's literally no basis outside of their performance last week was probably better than Adelaide's performance, and maybe the postseason will let it ride. But I don't know. I've got a feeling. I've just got a feeling they're going to win this time. And I think it's one of those seasons where, again, did I think they were going to win the championship series after round 2? No, I didn't even think they'd make the postseason, but they have. And, it would be from a Heat perspective. And if you Andy Kyle to get a ring, TK again, Bowser, Alex Hall, these guys would be great. And I just have a feeling they're going to win. And I don't know why. And I think they're going to win in 2 games. And I don't, there's no back. I think if it goes 3 games, we're in trouble, by the way. But I think
that's my concern. That's my concern. But again, it's a great thing. I would close with this. It's a celebration of the great game. It was like this last year. You got the 2 best teams, the way it should be. Both parks will be jamming. Adelaide with their close confines, they won't draw the crowd because they don't have the capacity to. But that place, they're right on you. The players got to walk through the stands. It's a little unfortunate, but they're right on you. You can hear everything they say. You've got more of a more palatial space in Perth with lots of folks screaming. It's a chance to showcase our game. It's a chance to showcase our league and say, look, this is what we do down here, and it's a great opportunity. So from that standpoint, it's a great thing. Every year we get to this point right here. We also, you're on the call tonight. Tell us about that.
Yeah, great. Tonight we'll have myself, which will be, whatever. We've got 2 legends. We've got Luke Hughes and Simon Isons on the call tonight as well, which are, great from Luke Hughes from a hitting point of view, I guess, getting to kind of show us what's happening hitting wise, and Ice to the professor of pitching to kind of break down what's happening on the bump, which will be awesome to have those guys inside. May even sneak in a pre-game interview with DV with some of the managers as well if we can get that far. And it should be great. It should be something that we look forward to. And Yeah, I think it'd be so good to hear from guys like Hughes and Ice again, and have you there as well, and yeah, and then Phil Herden and Eric will be and Scott will be part of the team,
Yep.
which would be awesome to hear in the next couple of days. But
we will be doing, and you and I, we're going to be here all week. And granted, Paul's not going to Adelaide. I'll be in Adelaide, but we will have coverage on Talking Baseball Australia, and we did it last year. I hope you folks will stop by and chat with us post game and all that. And then have we really decided what the hell we're going to do?
We'll talk something, but the one DV though, the one highlight that I think that the one thing if this all shakes out, there's a real chance that your crystal ball from the start of the year comes true. There's a real chance Adelaide win this in 2, and Josh Altman wins postseason MVP. The guy that you thought would come in and win the Helms just all of a sudden lights this thing up. So
I missed the Helms on him, but hey, I love the fact that Helms winner was a pitcher, so I'll take that too. Yeah. So all good.
Well, we'll be. I think we're on air from about 6:40 tonight here, which is obviously a bit later in the East Coast, 9:40, maybe around 9.
And we will be a short pregame this afternoon, right back here. I'll give you kind of a lay of the land. Paul will be getting his broadcast prep done. We'll give you a short. You guys were there at 6:40. You said, is that? I should ask you this already.
I think we are. Erica sent me the run sheet. I think it is 6:40 where we're going. So
we'll probably. I think we will do a short 5:30 start, just a quick lay of the land and give you an updates, anything like that, for about 30 minutes, and then
I'll tell you what will be cool tonight. And one thing that if I forget to do in the broadcast, but I will hopefully remember to do it in the broadcast. But Kayla Thompson, of course, she's an Adelaide Giants fan, but also a Kobe Foster fan with their Wild Things. Her year 1 class has been learning algebra to baseball in there. So she is based out of West Virginia. Her year one class, she's a teacher, has been, as I say, they've been learning algebra through baseball, through the heat games because the time zone works. And they'll be tuning in there in West Virginia, the class at 8:30 a.m. To watch the game, or 8:30 our time. So it's awesome. So good that we're going live to a classroom in West Virginia as well.
Well, can I give you a closing West Virginia nugget that pertains to this show and me and you? My first broadcast job at a college, at a uni, was in Charleston, West Virginia. And I believe she's up north of Pittsburgh in the handle of, but I spent a very one solid year with the Charleston Wheelers way back in the day, right out of college. So there's a connection there.
Yes.
I know Almost Heaven, West Virginia. As a matter of fact, my Uber driver 2 days ago was playing that same song by John Denver.
I was just about to say,
at the hotel. I mean, look at all these signs here. There's signs are everywhere, folks.
Yeah, some call it almost heaven, DV, don't they? But
all right, well, I'll see you at the ballpark, sir.
We'll see you. I'll pick you up soon, and we'll be heading out there. But look, it'll be a great series, and no one can predict the winner because we're just throwing darts on the wall and seeing what sticks. But it should be a great series. Look forward to broadcasting it and then also catching the Adelaide guys. Great broadcast this weekend. But and this time next week, whether you're back from Japan or not, I don't know when we're doing it, but we'll wrap this year up and give our 3, 2, 1s. But DV, appreciate your time and company. And
all right,
I'll text you
see you in a few hours. There he goes, Paul Morgan. See you in a few hours, mate. There he goes. And I close it out here again. We're going to be on the scene here and there, both all weekend. Again, it's a little wheels off because I will admit, we are a little wheels off on our plans because we really didn't talk about them till Wednesday. But we'll be there. We've got a seat there in Adelaide. The plan is to do a little audio from Adelaide in the post game like we did last year. Kind of give you the ins and outs of what happened. That's the plan. So again, a short little Facebook update this afternoon for the ballpark. Won't be very long because we got things to do, and the programming starts at 6:40. Just a short lay of the land, and that'll be this afternoon. Assuming everything equipment wise works out, and if not. We'll be okay. We'll just follow us, okay? You can follow us and our Sarah's social channels at the very back end. Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you stopping by. As I'm here in the West and Paul in the West as well. Thank you, everybody worldwide, back in North America, in West Virginia, and, of course, all across this great country of Australia. We're baseball's best mate. And ingrain that in your head. Ingrained it in your head here on Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best mate. Again, we're back, wrap the season up. We have a couple more shows to go, and then we wrap the season up, our end-of-season extravaganza. And then we're going to do a podcast all summer during the U.S. season. So Paul and I will take this show podcast version, which you can do that when I'm on the American Association in Sioux City to give you guys updates of what's going on, back both sides of the globe baseball-wise. And we'll be doing that on a bi-weekly basis, I do believe, during the U.S. season. But we'll get to all of that down the road. Of course, the lunchtime crowd's packing in there wondering, who's this guy talking to the world? That's just me right here. Again, I love you, honey, back there in the U.S. Miss you, Julie. Glad we got new windows. Love everybody else as well. Be better tomorrow than you were today. I mean, be a better fan no matter what happens. No matter who wins this thing. Let's be better fans tomorrow than we were today. Let's show more love tomorrow than today going forward in 2024. All right? For Paul Morgan, I'm Dan Vaughn. We'll see you next time, everybody. I hope your team wins. Let's roll the close.
Buy me some peanuts and cracker jacks. I don't care if I ever get back for its root. Root for the puppy. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Let's get some runs! Get some runs!
What, Tom?
Get some runs!
Let's get some runs, boys. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jacks. I don't care if I ever get back for its root. Root for the puppy. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Let's get some runs! Get some runs!